All right, we are live. What's up, y'all? It's your girl Jay Sharan. I have my former roommate, Candace Chapman, here. She is the head of her department in special education at Eddie White, which is very interesting because the agency that I worked for actually serviced Eddie White, but I didn't know she was there. So I still think that's hilarious that that actually was at one point one of my schools, and I didn't even know Candace was there. And she is a phenomenal teacher. And she also has a small business called Crafts by Candace, in which she curates special boxes for you or your loved one, or maybe you in an office party, maybe the Christmas season just passed, so maybe you didn't know what to
Mhm.
get your employees. Well, she would have crafted an amazing box for each one of your employees, specialized to their individual preferences and maybe some of their likes, and really made it feel special. So, good morning, Candace. How are you?
Good morning. I am good this morning. Other than the rain, I am still enjoying my teacher vacation. So I am great.
I miss those because we're not off. When you do therapy, there is no teacher vacation. So I
Right,
totally miss having that 2 weeks. People always say, well, no, teachers need those 2 weeks. To be honest, other professions do
right,
too. We just aren't allowed to take them.
right. You're
So I
right. I
totally
mean,
miss that summer break, 2 weeks.
yes.
So it sounds like you are enjoying your teacher break.
I most definitely am. Now, being the head of a department, I still am getting calls, emails, and things like that. But I've learned to set boundaries. So even over the break, I might say,
Mm.
I'm going to do a little bit of work this morning, or I'm going to return some emails this morning, or something like that. But I try to keep it balanced and not let that consume my off time, because it's definitely needed for us, especially being in the special ed department. It's a lot, so we need those breaks.
You do, and people don't think about that. That teachers, even like what you said about setting boundaries, because we don't in the educational field, we don't set boundaries. I can think about one of my boss's jokes, former boss, because I just got a new one. Said, "Yeah, I know we teach our clients boundaries, but we don't have any." And I'm thinking this is a terrible model because it is very true that we don't often have these boundaries. But what happens
Right,
is it bleeds over somewhere. If you have loose boundaries in one area, somewhere you're gonna have tighter boundaries than you need to, and then it's gonna affect something. It's gonna affect something in your personal life. It's gonna affect something
right.
in your professional life. So I used to have a coworker. She had really tough boundaries with us to the point she wouldn't even tell us her age. Well, guess what? She didn't have any boundaries with her family. So I'd hear these stories about how she felt that they weren't really adhering or listening to her needs. I don't want to do this. I don't want to pick
Hmm.
up. I don't want to. I don't. It's all I heard about what she didn't want to do and how nobody respected it. But I'm thinking you don't even tell us your age or if you like makeup.
And
So it's
that's
going to affect
interesting.
you. So I think go ahead.
That's interesting because I went through the same thing with my family, always
Mm.
wanting more and more from me. And I was wanting to please everyone, my family, and in my profession. And I had to learn to start saying no.
That is a magic word. Can we talk about burnout? If you do not say no, you will have your plate spilling over the side. And I kind of went through the
Right.
same thing, trying to be a wife and a mom, and then being a daughter and a sister. I'm like, and in my at the time, I was probably in graduate school. I'm traveling back and forth to school, so it's like you want to say yes, but you can't. There's no. They and our school literally would tell us that listen to us. Your family comes first. We come next. You have jobs, you have lives. Your social life is going to be not, you're going to have to learn to say no, or you will not finish this degree. And I think going
Yep.
through therapy, especially where I went to school, they were big on dealing with your issues and understanding, giving and receiving feedback, and then understanding where you need to set some structure and boundaries. I mean, those are the three things that they almost ingrained in us to do because they were like, if not, you're going this degree gonna be unfinished, or your life is gonna be chaotic. You have to find some balance.
Yep.
So
I will definitely say I got to that point, and I ended up developing, I was diagnosed with anxiety. And so the therapy
mm,
definitely helped me to come up with a plan to set those boundaries and um, allow me to stand up for myself, for the lack of a better word, because I do have a lot of my family that is dependent on me, and I have such a guilty conscience when I say no. And that was a learning process for me. So now, when I say no, I don't feel bad about it because I have to continue to think about myself. And one of the things that I'm actually getting my certification in instructional coaching. And one of the things that my teacher said, she always says, count your coins. Never run out of
Mm.
your coins. When your coins are running low, you need to step away. And so that's what
That
I
is a
do when
really phenomenal. Yeah, that is a really phenomenal statement. Count your coins. I never thought of it that way. I think of don't pour from an empty cup, but I think coins is more relative to how we think about money.
Yes, yes. And it's like, okay, for example, I like to shop. And we count our coins. It's like, okay, maybe I can't go to the mall, maybe I have to go to Walmart. And so you have to step back and take a look at it
Yep.
with your finances. Same thing with your careers and with your life. I remember having a conversation with my boyfriend, and he asked me, do you have time for a relationship? And at that point, I knew
Mm.
that I needed to set some boundaries and start balancing some things out because I didn't even realize that my work was taking over me like that.
And what's interesting is we don't realize in the areas that we're giving all this time to. I can think about even me in therapy. So I'm transitioning from being a therapist, I'm a trauma therapist currently, to being a life coach because I want more flexibility. I have had some very, very intense cases. If you lived in my house, there have been times my husband has had to take the kids and I have been locked in a closet because with telehealth, we're in a pandemic. I can't go to them. If I go to my client, I may or may not be able to see them. If the police are there, they may or may not let me in. If they're already at the hospital, which I've had, they're not going to let me in the hospital. They barely let you in with your kids. And so I have had to be locked in a closet for 3, 4 hours, 2 to 3. I mean, ongoing weekend stuff. I've had anywhere from attempts and suicide to clients to murder people. I mean, you name it, I've
Mm,
probably had it on my caseload. And so it came to a point that I remember my husband's mother calling him for his birthday. But I was so my boss, my former supervisor, she now has her own practice. And she told me secondary trauma is real. Like she does this trauma stuff. Like I did it for 3 years, and I'm like, but like Sharita and Shakenya, they do this stuff and they still practice the concepts of it, which they're really good concepts. TFCBT is the modality that I learned for trauma. So I feel like if you have trauma, there are definitely a lot of different modalities. There's one I think it starts with a C, but I'm not very versed in it. TFCBT is definitely the model we've used with a lot of our kids, and so I remember his mother calling, and at the time we had both just gotten our phones. We hadn't really set a individual ringtone, right? So she calls at midnight
mhm,
because she wants to be the first to tell him happy birthday, and then I hop out
mhm.
of bed because I think it's my phone. I'm freaking out. I'm searching for my phone. And he's like, "What is your problem?" And I'm like, "I can't find my
Yep.
phone," because I've had it where I didn't answer and an emergency occurred. I've had it where I didn't answer because my phone was dead one time, and it's a liability as a therapist. You cannot not answer the phone where there was a crisis and my boss had to call the other phone and was like, "Dude, you got to get up. Your client has blah 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 blah." And now I'm like, "Well, do we go?" And my boss is like, "No, girl, we going to. Did you hear what I said? She did. We got to call the police first." So I was like, "I can't find my phone. I don't know." And so you don't think about how much you're getting wrapped into this. And finally, my husband's in the bed. He's like,
Mhm.
"Girl, if you do not like this is we got to talk about this in the morning because it is 12:30. You are freaking out." He's like, and so he starts searching for a phone wherever the noise is coming from. He looks at the phone and he's like, "Dude, it's my mom calling." And no, I'm not answering. I'm asleep. Like I'll call her in the morning, but you're freaking out. Like, now can you go to bed? And I'm like, no, I still can't find my phone. And so that's when I knew, right? Our significant others have this way about telling us, like, you know what I mean? You may need balance. You are not balancing it out. My husband's like, look, you are really having a lot of crises. Is this crisis work something you want to continue to do? And what does that look like for our family? I need to know. You know what I mean? Before I take any more promotions, before I take any more intense executive work, like, dude, are you gonna be okay? Because one of them stuck with me so long, it took me a week to shake. And that's when I knew
See,
as a therapist, I had to get therapy. I had to get there. I called my mentor, was like, "Can you put me on your schedule? I know you're full. Put me on your schedule," because I
yes,
knew that I could not no longer deal with it because it was too much. I was literally freaking out if I couldn't find my phone. It was taking me days to kind of come out of it. I was always worried. I remember being on the phone with a client and one of them was talking self-harming, the other was beeping in talking attempt suicide, and here I am having to choose. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I
yeah.
can't do this anymore.
I mean,
So I definitely feel you.
I can't imagine being in that predicament. I think as an educator and as a special education teacher, we see a lot
Mhm.
with our kids. And even in the community that I work in, we see a lot of deaths among the children. And
Yep.
so if you're a therapist and you're going through this, imagine how it hits us and the kids when things like this happen.
Right.
I don't
Right, and it's a
know.
lot. It's not more than one kid. It's a lot of kids that and I've we've
Right.
been what's funny is you guys partner with our agency, so it's been times we've had to go to different schools because a kid has done something like this and the school needs to grieve,
Mhm.
right? We don't think about
Mhm.
how in
Yeah.
terms of the school, the teachers, the kids, the parents, the school needs to grieve. And so we have had to come in and definitely have, always been open. It's schools we have no students at, and they call us and say, "Hey, we know you guys do this work. Can you come down?" And we go down and help the parent because it is a lot. People don't think about that. We have gone through an entire pandemic schooling
Mhm.
from home. My
Mhm.
kids that couldn't school from home struggled to get the schooling down from home. Then they had to go back and relearn how to school in school. And so now they're
Yes.
struggling in school.
Yes, and they are really struggling, and I think for the most part, even though we're done with the first semester, I still think that they are struggling. A
Right.
lot
They
of
are.
what
They
I
are.
see and what I have to deal with is that, they seem to have had a lot of unstructured time at home. And so when they come to
Mhm.
us, they think it's still home, it's play on the computer, play games. And so it's a lot. And so as the teachers, we're having to play work mom because we are having to restructure them so that
Mhm.
we can do our jobs. And that, takes a lot. You're definitely not in it for the pay, because I feel like we do way more than just teach a content.
Mhm.
And I think if
You
you
have
have
to.
not
You
been an
have to.
educator, it's hard for you to see that.
You know what is that was my biggest frustration in the pandemic, and whoever wants to comment, sure, you are allowed to have your own opinion here. I'm never for anybody not have an opinion. This is currently mine. As someone who has been in the academic arena, I think parents requesting we go back into schools without understanding that Georgia defunded education for the last 15 years. If you went and looked at the line items of education, police didn't get defunded. They were at the top for getting the least amount of money taken away. Education was
Mhm.
like 30 and had like $30 million that they were taking away from education. We were sending our kids back into buildings that were not equipped with windows that would not open. As a
Mhm.
parent, you don't know that because we make sure you don't see our classroom is crap. So if
Right.
our buildings are terrible, imagine what we're having to work through with these kids in a contained environment. It is not the same as you going to an office where you can avoid your coworkers. It is in a classroom. My kid's class, his school promotes smaller classrooms. Currently, he let me know there are 26 kids in his class, and I almost pulled my hair out. Like, where did 26 kids
Yep.
come from? Your class was
Yeah.
supposed to be 18 to 20, and he
Yeah.
is not even at a normal public school. So you're going into schools with 26, 32 kids in
Yes.
one confined area for 8 hours a day that have come from different homes, different backgrounds, that are neurodiverse, that are neurotypical, and this is
Yes.
what Candace is working with. She's working with the kids that are neurodiverse. But this is the issue sometimes when you have all of this in one building, how do you accommodate everybody? So Candace, can you just tell us a little bit when parents are having these struggles, their kid is kind of lacking structure. I've seen that a lot because I work with a lot of
Mhm.
neurodiverse kids too, specifically ADHD, right? a lot of parents don't understand if you're not going to medicate, you got to do some things that are very structured. Their bodies can't handle transitions or being in chaos. Their bodies need to have kind of a routine to move forward. So tell us a little bit about what
Right.
that looks like in the classroom, what they can do at home, and kind of some tips on that.
Right. One of the things I did run into is that not only the students, but the parents are struggling. I try to build healthy relationships with all of my parents, and just in conversations
Yes.
with them, they are going through a lot, especially financially. So
Mm,
I try to work with my students the best way that I can. Of course, I teach special ed, and so there are different exceptionalities and different learning disabilities that I work with, but the ADHD is one of the most challenging because it's it's hard to transition. It's
yep.
hard to I'll give an example. If I have to take a day off and
Oh
I'm
yeah.
not there with them, that is, I mean,
Poor sub.
yes, yes. And so think just things like, I think the most important thing is building that relationship with the parent. Like I know my ones that can deal with me not being there and my ones who can't. So I always contact those parents and say, "Hey, I'm not going to be in tomorrow, or I'm not going to be in for this period. I just want to let you know." So the parent is able to have a conversation with the child and kind of prep them to be ready for that change when they come to school. Um, I
Right.
remember the week that we got out, I was supposed to have, it was they gave every teacher in the special ed department a work day where someone else would cover our class, and we had the whole day to do our paperwork. Well, guess what? I had to cut my day short because some of my students in different periods got into a fight into my classroom. That, I feel like that
Mm,
would not have happened had I been there, you know? And so for
yep.
me, I just wholeheartedly try to make sure that my kids are taken care of, and I always consider their conditions, and I have to consider how hard this is for them, and that
Right.
allows me to
So,
be uh, a better teacher for them. And I also feel like at this point, I'm still teaching the content, but I have to teach, it's almost like you have to teach manners over again. You have to teach how to
yep.
walk in the hallway. You have to teach wash your hands when you leave the restroom, things like that. And that's not to say they don't know that, but it's the part of the school structure that has gotten lost because we have been out for so long. And even in some situations, we still have kids that cannot deal with the face to face. So I think it's good that the county
Mhm.
gives the parents an option to continue their student virtual or to come
Yeah.
into the building, because some of them, it is still too hard to be in the building. Um, but for the most part, I just try to learn all of my students, and I always tell them I'm not doing what is equal, I'm doing what is fair. This
Yes.
student
Right.
may have not had breakfast this morning, but you did. So because I'm giving this student breakfast, it's not because I don't want you to have it, but you've already had it and this student has not. And so the fair thing to do is to make sure this student is able to eat breakfast just like you did. That gives them a fair chance at a better day, just like you have. And so because I have sixth graders, I
Yep.
feel like, they're still kind of in that elementary mindset, but I'm trying to teach them things like that. I mean, they haven't been to school
Whew,
since
let me tell
what,
you, the
third or
roughest
fourth
year I had
grade.
as a therapist. That's what another middle schooler said. Another middle school teacher said. These kids have not been to school since third or fourth grade. And let me tell you, the roughest year I had as a therapist was when my caseload was number middle school. Let me tell you, woo, Jesus.
Oh,
Oh, I almost quit
I
three
mean,
times that year.
it is a lot. I got to a point with one of my classes. I had to incorporate some type of recess time, because think about it, their
Yeah.
elementary education was cut short. They still got it virtual, but they didn't get the recess time. They didn't get the things that they would normally get when they're in school. So I had to allow them to
Right.
get that out so that I could
Yeah.
be successful in fostering their learning.
Right, right. And one thing I love that you said was the fair, right? People sometimes don't understand when you are neurodiverse, you can't learn or do things the way that a neurotypical person does them, right? So to make them do these things is unfair to them because they can't. So telling them
Right.
you need to remember this. I always tell my parents, and it sounds like a couple of things you said. Well, they need a daily routine, they need structure. They do. Even the small ones can make a pictorial schedule where they draw the pictures of their day and
Mhm.
that you hang it up somewhere. The less their brain can do, the better. So if you create a routine for them, right? Hang the
Mhm.
routine up so everybody knows what's going on. So when they start doing 6 o'clock, we're supposed to be 4:30, we supposed to be 5
Yep.
o'clock, and their bodies can then get into this routine, which is what you were saying about the fact when you're not there that they tend to act up because you're not present and they struggle with transition. Transition just means moving from one thing to the next. That could be from
Right.
one activity to the next, that can be one house to the next, that could be one of my students when they move from they stay with a relative during the week, when they move back to their primary parent, it is chaos sometimes because
Yeah.
that transitioning from I've been here most of the time to now with you, it does something to their bodies. Even the scheduling, I had one kid go from getting up really really early to getting up regular, and it started to affect the way that they were learning and
Mhm.
getting ready for
Mhm.
school. And so sometimes we don't think of transitions, we think of big ones. We moved out of state, right? I got a divorce, I got remarried, or we got married, or
Right.
somebody died. We tend to think of the really, or I moved schools. Well, we don't think they changed classroom. We don't think they were learning at home for 2 years. And like you said, third or fourth grade was the last time they had a structured environment in school. Now you got to get used to
Right.
that
And when you
again.
come back to
And you
school and
didn't
you're
get
in
all of
middle
the
school,
maturing.
right, when you come
Yep.
back to school
Totally
from
different environment.
you left school in elementary, you're coming back, now you're in middle school.
Yep.
There was no even opportunity for that transition to go from an elementary student to a middle school student. So of course, this is super overwhelming. You go from being in one class all day to five different classes, five different teachers. That
Yep.
is, I mean, because I see it every day, I know that it is a lot. It is a lot. And I
Yep.
think, the people above us, or, the people who put these things in place, they don't think
And
about
sometimes I've
those
never been
things.
in a classroom.
Right. Right. They don't think about those things. And I don't want to say it puts pressure on us, but it puts us in a position where we have to do way more so that we could get to a point
Mhm.
where we can actually teach.
Nobody ever asks. I always said this, that they used to tell me when they didn't want me to move up, I was so good at teaching that they didn't want me to do anything else. And I would get very frustrated because part of it is as a teacher, you need to be making the decisions that they're making to make a classroom run more effectively. Don't pigeonhole me into this space because I'm good at it. It was funny because my husband makes this joke. He says, Lord, don't tell her she's good at teaching. She's going to bite your head off. Because at the time I was good at teaching, but they were using it to pigeonhole me into the classroom. I'm like, I don't really want to be in the classroom anymore. I want to be able to make decisions for the classroom to support the teachers, which is
Yes.
how I ended up in therapy. I'm like, nobody's going to let me out of this classroom. Like, I get I'm good at teaching. It's funny because I ran into one of my former parents. She said, it was a situation where the director just didn't read the fine print. They changed the pre-K rules in 2016. She didn't realize it. So although I was a level 10 out of 12 for the PDS, I could only be an assistant teacher. And so when I left, because I had to, according to the law, we didn't read. The parents said, "Oh my God, my kid." I ran into her at my other job, and she said, "My kid loved you. You just did so much for kids that didn't even speak English." So we don't even think about kids that are learning dual languages at home, right? Their parents in this particular family
Right.
very fluent in English, right? But still, the
Right.
kid, they were teaching them Spanish, and so the kid was learning Spanish. But if you ask them, can you give me your numbers 1 to 10 in English? Struggle. Can you give me your numbers 1 to 10 in Spanish? Uno, dos, tres, like on it. And so,
Hmm.
how do you make sure, like you said, that it's fair? And I think, like what you said, is important about building that relationship with the parents. The parents are struggling, which is half the reason some of them did want to just push their kids into school. Like, I didn't sign up for this. If I wanted to sign up
Mhm.
for this, I would have homeschooled. We totally
Mhm.
understand that. But I think what everybody failed to understand is, in order to make them successful at the schools, we should have done more while they were at home. Nobody's gonna say that,
Right.
but I will, because I ain't you what you gonna do to me in a district? You should have done more for your schools to prepare your environments. My son's school did that. They said we're probably going to be virtual this year. We're gonna map out virtual this year. They redid their ventilation system when he came back. They redid their cafeteria. They redid the structure to the school so that when I sent my kid back in and they decided we're not doing virtual anymore, we're not doing that option. Everybody's got to come in. I felt safer sending my kid into a place that had taken the time to think and do the research for how we can make this a safe and very social and very caring environment for when they come back. Because my concern was always, am I doing more damage sending my kid to school where he can't really touch? I watched my son at a park during the pandemic in a mask, trying to make friends. And I see him like leaning over, trying to scream at this kid 6 feet away, trying to make a friend. And I thought, oh God, if I send him to
Yeah.
school screaming through this cloth braiding mask,
Yes.
what am I doing to him learning love and connection when here I can hug him, here I can kiss him, here I can put my hands on him.
Right.
At school, you're saying he has to play 6 feet apart with friends.
Yes, and then that is another thing that I saw that is really hard for the kids because let me say this first. Our school, we began construction on our school at the end of the last school year. Our elementary side
Mhm.
moved out, and so now our entire school is middle school. And because of COVID, there were a lot of things that could not get done in the building. I think we were
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 months in before lockers even started getting delivered. And
Oh,
they're still
wow.
not ready for the students to use. So just things like that when you try there's always that barrier. And so one of the things that I ended up doing was I put my kids in a cleaning routine and hold them accountable for their
Nice.
cleanliness in their area. They know when my first period leaves, second period, you line up at the door, you wait for Miss Chapman to spray the classroom down, then you come in. You wipe down, we'll get a wipe, you wipe down your entire area, and you keep your mask on, you get your hand sanitizer, and then we are ready to learn. Because this is a thing that I saw, because
Yeah.
they have not seen each other in so long, they is so much of a struggle to stay 6 feet. They want to be with their friends. They
Yep.
want to be close with them. They want to play
Yeah.
with them. And so constantly we're all day, y'all too close. Back
Right.
up.
We're
Put your mask
hardwired for
on. Pull your
connection. So
mask on.
yeah.
And so that was one of the things that I just had to consider as them being human beings. It's hard for them. They
Right.
haven't seen anybody
Right.
in a couple of years. And so as a
And then we
teacher, I
talk
felt
about
like
that
it was
they can't drive. They can't drive. Like the high school kids could drive to see their friends. They could, so I had started
right,
suggesting online stuff for my kids that can't drive. If your friends are not in the neighborhood, can you get there? I told my son this time, he is doing this, which is funny because my kid is like third grade. So he's like, I'm like, dude, you need emails. Like you may need phone numbers, but you may get their parents, but email is something you can control. Gaming systems are something you can control. Put parental
right,
controls on it, but know your friend's kids. So you know that Naruto 10, 9, 16, is Jimmy from second
right,
period. You know what I'm saying? Because they
right.
can't. And I had to even remind my parents, when you're frustrated in this pandemic, you can get in your car and leave. What's your fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth grader gonna do? When they don't have, they tired of you and they can't talk to their friends. So
Yeah.
very true.
Yeah, and I'm definitely seeing that. So I had to, for my classroom, I had to put parameters in place to keep them safe, but still allow them to be human. And
Yeah.
so we did not receive anything as far as school supplies or PPE supply, anything like that when school started. So everything I've purchased has been out of pocket. So it got to a
Right.
point where I asked one of the assistant principals, hey, is it okay if I send home a letter for supplies for my room? She said, absolutely. So I sent home, I said, I'm trying to keep our students safe as they continue to come in, but I need your help to continue to do this. We need wipes, we need paper towels, we need
Yes.
sanitizer, we need Kleenex, we need all of these
Right.
things. And I was just so just happy to have that support from the parents
Right.
to just
Right.
send in those things, you know. And so we are rocking and rolling, and they know, clean your desk off, and they'll say, Miss Chapman, so and so didn't wipe his desk down. You know, they they know now. They know when it comes to that, I do not play. And I had to be real with them. I had to say, look, this is what is going on in the world. This is what is
Yeah.
happening. If
Kid
we
friendly.
don't
Yeah.
keep it clean in here, we all are going to be sick. I even
And
have a
can we talk
student
about the
now.
fact that the elementary schools never kind of work clean? Like, because I think about working in the daycare. Me and you have both worked in daycare. We used to work at the same. Lord Jesus, I wonder is she still? Y'all, if
Those
y'all understand, we
days,
gotta bring Brooke on. Brooke, if you're watching this, you gotta come on one day so we can talk about Angel Academy. We all three worked there. Now, to be fair, she loved Brooke, right? She absolutely.
she
Me and
did.
Candace gave her a
She
headache.
did.
She loved Brooke. But let me tell you, she loved me some days, hated me some days, and me and Candace kind of worked her nerves. But to be fair, she didn't pay us a lot, and she worked ours. So out of the three of us, I was the one that got fired because I got tired of her. She's left me in the room with 15. If you've ever worked in daycare, 15 2-year-olds right after nap time and about to be snack time is pure chaos. Never will you leave a
Yep.
28, 19, 20-year-old in a room with 15 2-year-olds that need to be changed because none of them are potty trained. So this, I always say my mama's classroom would have had this. She'd have potty trained everybody. Bev would have had everybody on the toilet, right?
Yes, she
15
would have.
two-year-olds, all of them need to be changed. Candace know my mama. 15 2-year-olds, none of them were potty trained. Maybe two were trying to potty train. It was snack
Yep.
time. They had brought juice in, right? And I'm supposed to put up cots, feed, change diapers by myself. I left her a very not. It wasn't to me. It wasn't mean, but she didn't like I hollered at her, so she fired me. But only job I've ever been fired from. And I've worked since I was 12, but we worked at a daycare. And I think about how you clean in this routine all the time, right? But when you get to
Right.
elementary school, they don't do that cleaning. They don't do like Miss Chapman's
No.
classroom, which we should, because if you take germs of a third grader's hand, they wash their hands the least. So even without COVID, this should
Yes.
have been a practice in
Yes.
school. Parents should have to be the ones. If parents are sending it in, why is it? This goes back to what I say about we're not giving enough money to schools. This should have been a
Right.
kit
Because they
that we
shouldn't
give
have to do
kids.
that. We shouldn't have to do that. You know, I feel like we
Right,
should,
your
each
own money.
teacher should have gotten an allotment to order the things that they need. And I do
Right.
understand lots of things are back ordered, lots of things are not in stock. But the point is the gesture. Give us
Yep.
something.
Yep.
Give us
To help.
something, you know. I think we
Right. Give us
got
something.
one bottle of sanitizer and one pack of wipes when school started.
Let me take off my glass so y'all can see my face. Like, what is she supposed to do with one pack with 20 some kids? It's like, what are you supposed to do with that? My husband said, he said, you should go back to teaching. I said, no. He said, why? I said, because the red tape drives me insane. You already know how your wife is. Put me in a box and I'm trying to claw my way out. So the red
Yes.
tape drives me insane having to potty on the schedule. It was so funny because over the summer, the daycare I worked for, the last daycare I worked for, my kid goes there. I love Gail. And she's very sweet. Her and Linda, I absolutely love them. In side story, there was a case where one of the parents, I mean, all but discriminated against me because I was a black teacher. What was funny was I was a black teacher, only one with a master's degree. I had all these years of experience, and I was coming from a private school that was charging $300. Gail had pulled me from a private school that was charging $300, in which we had bowling, we had cooking, we had children's learning adventure, we had bowling, we had cooking, we had music, we had art, and I brought all that into my classroom. But this parent who was from Asia, not China or any of those countries, but from Asia, decided that I wasn't teaching his kid good enough. And when Linda pulled out this paper that said what I was teaching her, she said, this teacher, this is the most thorough narrative, because in pre-K you have to write these narratives, that I've ever seen a
Mm.
teacher write. Sounds like your kid like what you want your kid to learn. Your kid likes science and STEM, and she's really trying to foster that as a woman, because if she's a woman that likes STEM and math and science, this will take her very far. So while you want her to read and do writing, your kid is into science. And my thing is your kid will
Mhm.
always learn writing, but if they're into science and I can foster that love of science and math, I want her as a woman to take that with her. And
Right.
so I just think about being in that pre-K and then the cleaning and then doing all the stuff in the classroom. You don't do that stuff when you get to the elementary levels. You don't do those things when you get to be in this space with the bigger kids. So I think even when you say we have this cleaning routine, I think that's phenomenal because it helps, I just think of the support the parents have to give, which is kind of sad because the schools aren't giving it. That you as a teacher really have to
Mhm.
foster your own
And right, and
environment.
I was, that's a good point because I was a little bit on the fence about sending the letter out because my thought was, oh my God, the parents are going to know we don't have these things consistently in
Yeah.
the room. And they're sending their kids to us, expecting us to keep them safe. But they don't know we don't have these things. So that really I was on the fence because of that. But thankfully the parents were on board. I even had parents that financially couldn't. And I remember
Mhm.
I sent that letter out maybe a couple of months into school. I kid you not, the last week of school, I had a student bring me a bag full of stuff. And that
Aw.
warmed my heart because even though the parent could not provide it when I asked, she didn't forget and she still sent in something. And so I really, really appreciated that. And so,
Nice.
I just feel like our parents need to be kept in the loop a little bit more.
Yes.
I do
Yes.
understand the politics of it, but that's one of the conflicts that I do have with being a teacher is the politics of it versus my morals.
Yes.
And so that is one of the main
Yes.
reasons that
Yes.
I am
Yes.
trying to work my way out of the classroom so that I can have a bigger voice to advocate more.
Sounds like you about to go into politics and run for the school board.
No, I don't no. But I just feel like education has become so dehumanizing and we don't think about how it's
Yeah.
affecting the kids. We think about the money, we think about the test
Nope.
scores, funding, things like that. Those things are important. But if we cannot allow these kids to be who they are and grow as humans, doesn't matter how much funding we get. Those test scores are still going to be low because we
No.
have this whole other thing over here we're trying to get under control on top of trying to teach them. And right now, because we are in a pandemic,
Right.
socially and emotionally, that is trumping math, science, social studies, ELA.
Right. And I think that we don't understand that. I think that if you can teach that was always my goal as a teacher. If I can get you to love learning. And one of my kids, when they started saying, I don't want to go to school, that's when I told my husband, we got to move them
Hmm.
because I don't need so that you're a lifelong learner and
Oh
I'm like, what
no.
happened? That must have been me.
Yeah. Oh
I think
no.
it's me because we have, all right, AT&T, I'm about to call you out on YouTube. Because it is storming. As Candace mentioned earlier, it is raining. It is still raining over here. Is it still raining where you are?
Yes, it actually took
Yeah, so it
me
is raining
quite a
and
few
hot.
minutes to
You
get
see I have
logged
on no
on
sleeves?
because I have AT&T too. So look, I feel your
See?
pain. Yeah.
Do better, AT&T. During the pandemic, it was the worst. I literally had to just sacrifice and not be the I would use my phone. I would use T-Mobile because my son was on AT&T, my husband was on AT&T, and then I would hear if I hear a stream of loud, fill in the blank here kind of thing, my husband had just lost connection and he was in a big meeting. And we're switching. I mean,
See?
we switched AT&T from, three times a week because he would lose connection and he'd be talking to his boss or he'd be talking
Yeah.
to the team about what's next, and then boom. no connection, and so I would just, because I didn't want too many people on it, I would just use a T-Mobile. Thank you for holding it down, because I never ever had. I held clients, I held crises, I held it down on T-Mobile's
Right,
line,
right.
and I
Even now,
so
I still log on to some of my meetings from my phone because I have
yep.
T-Mobile too. It's much quicker for me to get logged on.
Yeah, so this sounds like AT&T. You haven't won me and Candace over to get our phones from you, because T-Mobile is holding down. So what's funny is my husband has Verizon and he won't move over for that reason. We went somewhere and I didn't have reception, but he did for Verizon, and he was like, so much for me moving over, because I mean, this is so crazy. I always say this. He hates it. I say, but it's true. It's the tale of our childhoods that we both have a phone bill, but his parents helped with his phone bill like they did for years. And then I was paying my family's phone bill for years. And so I told him that's a tale of our childhoods. That because my mother remember we back in college, my mom got sick of us texting. So she was like, well, since you're texting, you have the phone bill. And I'm like, oh, that's not how this works. Texting is actually
Right,
quicker. And so even with my brother, she was like, well, I'm gonna take it back over, but I'm gonna strip everything. And I'm like, dude, you don't have Wi-Fi. You can't strip, he's in college. You can't strip his phone of the internet because you don't
right.
have it. And if he comes home from Morehouse, he got work to do. So my mother is very, very budget conscious and frugal. So she don't care. She still don't have Wi-Fi. My brother is putting it in
Yeah.
as her Christmas. She's frugal. She don't care. She does not care. She does not care. Let me tell you, she does not care. She does not care. That woman is who
Look,
she is,
tell
and
them
she's like, I
it's
don't
about
want
to
it.
be
I don't need it. My
2022.
uncle is the one. Yeah. Tavy is putting it in. Thank God for the actor in our family, who was supposed to be on my podcast, but me and him. So guys, this is a little side note, and then we'll wrap up with Candace and let her confess something, and then if I need to, she probably confesses something from my college days. I probably end up confessing something. So me and him ended up putting together a bike till 4 a.m. and it's still not together. And so my mom was like, "Yeah, your granddaddy put together a lot of stuff. We don't put together. We get bike experts, so we got to go find a bike shop." Because after hours and hours of trying,
Oh my
we are further behind on the
goodness.
brakes than we are together. I mean, so he helped, and yeah, it's still that was our. My mom, what are you doing up? So putting this bike together. And so my kid knows the bike came from me and daddy. So mommy putting it
Yeah.
together and having
And
Santa
this
Claus bring
what
his gift.
yeah.
He knows, but I tell him big gifts come from mom and dad. Santa brings smaller gifts that you like, stuff that you're interested in, but the big gifts come from mom and dad. And I feel like
I
that's
know that's
important
right.
because yeah, and I feel like it's important even for somebody else's conscience. You go to school with somebody, right? And they come from Santa. In our house, they don't. So maybe they do for that one kid, but in our house, I've asked Santa to bring the smaller
Right.
gifts so that we can take care of the big stuff. So that when my son goes to school, he says, "Oh no, no, no! I got that iPad. My mommy bought it. My daddy bought it. Grandma and grandpa bought it. Not
Mhm.
Santa bought it." And that kid goes, "Well, I asked for one too. Why didn't Santa bring me one?" No, in our house, Santa brings. I've asked Santa to do that. Now, some people's houses, he may bring the big gifts. In my house, I've talked to Santa. He brings the smaller gifts. Me, daddy, grandma, grandpa, Gigi. We take care of everything else.
Right, but I
We
like
got
that
that.
though because it also leaves a sense of innocence for the kids. I had a student who
Yep.
still believes in Santa, and she said something about it one day, and another student says, "There's no Santa Claus," and I thought I was going to flip my
Ah!
lid. I was like, "You cannot say that. Don't say that." Because,
The story.
every
Give me
household
the
is different. I'd rather them just
Mhm.
not talk about
Yep.
it, but it was like I had to intercept because I didn't want this baby going home and saying, "Mom, someone at school told me there's no Santa Claus."
Yeah.
I'm like,
My
don't, no.
dude.
I'm like, no.
Yep. So I do, and I feel like that gives him a sense of you're not asking Santa for all these crazy stuff. No, 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 no. Because when mommy say she ain't getting it, she ain't getting it, right? Mommy and
Right.
daddy buy the big stuff. Grandma, grandpa, Gigi, Uncle Justin, Uncle JT. When he wanted a prodigy membership, I said, "Hey, you got uncles?" Ask your uncles. I mean, they'll be glad to get you a membership to a math game. If that's what you want for Christmas. He didn't really ask for a lot. I said, if that's what you want for
Right.
Christmas, ask one of your uncles. It's like $30 for the year. Ask them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Ask one of your
Right.
uncles, and they had no issues getting him anything. At this point, I'm just conceded to the fact that I'm just not gonna have a sister-in-law from either one of them. So because nobody is, well, they're both kind of dating. It's funny because they have similar stories. They dated for years, both of them they dated their significant other while they were in college for 5 years, and the
Mhm.
relationships both ended. And those girls have moved
Wow.
on. One is engaged, one is now currently married. And my brother-in-law's business is booming, but at this point, it's like you better catch him when you can catch him. He works a full-time job and he's got a business and he employs people.
Yes.
My brother is on the move. He's acts, and so he in New Orleans. I mean, he spent his last birthday in Barbados, filming. And
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
like at this point, if you a chick, you got to catch them where you can catch them
See?
because I
Well,
can't even help you at this point.
you definitely know my dating journey, and so or the lack thereof.
So
Um,
Candace probably was unofficially one of my first dating clients because I really love to talk about dating, and Candace really loved to date, and we would find these jokers that's like, where do we find these from, Candace?
oh my God,
You
it
got
was
to get these
awful.
from.
Yes.
So who I haven't met her new boyfriend, but shout out to him because he sounds a world of different. Okay.
Yes,
But probably from the
he
years
and
of us talking, like, no, we can't do this. We can't, nah. We gotta weed this stuff out. We can't be having this. He did what? Oh, he gotta go. He gotta go. We gotta
right, right. And when I tell you this man that I have now, he's much older than me. He's 50. I'm 36, but I felt like we are equal.
Yeah.
So it works. And we both had similar paths,
Mm.
especially he lost his sister around the same time I lost my brother.
Oh wow.
We didn't know each other then, but
Mhm.
we've had common bonds that have helped us build a strong foundation and help us get together. In the beginning, I was like, mm, we'll see. And we dated for almost a year, long distance.
Yeah. Oh
And
wow.
yeah, and I didn't think it was going to work. I was like, you're gonna get tired of coming to see me every weekend. That's a long drive, but
He did.
he 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 stuck with it
Men
consistently.
will work for what they want. Let me tell you guys a little secret about guys. If they want it, they will work for it. If they ain't willing to work for it, they don't want it. I remember telling one of my friends when their boyfriend, they would break up with them, but they wouldn't rush to get back. The boyfriend wouldn't rush to get back with them. I'm like, dude, let him come back to you because when he comes back, he really wants it. You pressuring him and guilting him into coming back, then he comes back because he feels bad. Is why you keep having the same
Right.
issues you had the first 3 times y'all broke up.
Right. He still
Let
really doesn't want to
him
be
come
there.
back to you because you're giving him, yeah, because he'll figure it out. If he want to be there, he'll come back. Right? If he don't want to be
Right.
there, let him, then good. Let him be on his merry way. And I think that men will, I think about my husband. He made the comment when we first got married. It's funny because Michael, but none of my friends back home knew him. And so my friend told me the other
Hmm.
day, my friend Ashley was like, friend, he's not like anybody you ever dated. And I'm like, my roommates knew him.
Nope.
And I always, Brooke had discernment, even though she didn't admit it. Because I remember one of the friends we were in front of when I first started out, started liking Michael, a friend
Hmm.
asked about him. And she was like, Brooke looked at me like, you really want to say who you like? I think you should keep it to yourself. And I'm like, oh, they cool. Said it. And because of what they said, I never pursued him. It took years for me to
Wow.
go back and pursue him. And I always think about Brooke looking at me like, I should get that look. Like, you sure you want to
Hmm.
say that? I think you should keep it to yourself and let me do what I was
Hmm.
gonna do, which is call his friend Eddie. You know what I mean? And so I think when we get to these places, he lived in Gwinnett. I lived in Decatur. If you know where that is, you have to take 3 highways to get there. And so
Hmm.
we dated with me not having a car, both of us in grad school, both of us working full-time jobs. My truck went out and he made a joke. I said, no, I had my truck at the beginning. He said, dude, the last time I saw you have your truck was when I met you in the middle of the night at Waffle House. You and Amberly, remember? And that's the last time I saw that little Jeep. Yeah, after that it broke down. He said, remember you were going to class that weekend and broke down on the way to class. And I was like, he's right. That was our first date. Our first date was in the middle of that Waffle House when my mentees had an emergency. I had to take her to one of my friend's uncle's house to get her on a bus to send her to her relatives in another state. My friend Amberly, it was their uncle, so she was riding with me to go. And I was. We
Mhm.
took her there. The next morning, I went to Nashville, and on the way to Nashville, my truck broke down on the side of the road. So he was right. He met us at Waffle House. So
Wow.
like, y'all cheap dates. He paid for everybody. People say that they should. My husband didn't have to, right? He looked at it was a Waffle House ticket. He didn't have to pay for me and her. He just chose to. And I think we said, well,
Right.
if I take him out and he don't pay for all my friends, girl, he not dating your friends. You gonna lose a good man trying to bust his
Right.
budget for your rusty, crusty friends that ain't dating him. Why he need to pay for
Right.
your friends? Now, some men
Right.
have this mindset that we take care of the women in our circle, no matter what. Some men do that, and it's not about dating; it's about I'm a man. So if it's
Right.
one
It's
of my
chivalry.
yes, one of the dudes I dated was like that. But you know what? His parents lived in a penthouse. They owned 3 daycares, and he had money to be like that. His house was paid for, his car was paid for. Yeah, he got money to pay. He's established in life. But if you're 26 years old, you don't need to pay for my friends when we both working jobs, making 20 something thousand a year, trying to pay bills and in grad school. What you need to pay
Right.
for us for? Right? Get you a man, and then your man can pay for your stuff. I
Exactly.
We don't need to do that. I don't
Yes.
understand women who say that. Dating tip. If he pays for your stuff, he don't have to pay for your friend's stuff. If he does, that is an added bonus. But I know I dated a
Right.
guy, he was like that. He was like, oh no, it was 12 people at the table, 4 dudes. We were supposed to split the check. That's a mindset some men have, but also it's usually men like this guy was older than me, like you not as old as you and your boyfriend. I think that sometimes in life when you're established, when you're in the same place in life, the age don't matter if you're a good fit and you're at the same place in life. Because I think that was important to say. You were at the same place in life with him, right? We had lost
Mhm.
our siblings, which was really crazy. I knew Candace's brother, so it was come as a shock that we lost him, right? Because that was like all of our little brothers. We
Right.
all of us have done projects on him. He was the first person I encountered with a disability, but he was so lively. He was so sweet. He was very smart. And so when I had to do a project for my disabilities class, I called Candace, I called her brother, and her mother was the one like, yeah, all of her friends called D when they had these projects to do. You know what I mean? Because he's so open about what he was going through. And so it's like we're at the same place of life. Yes, I'm 36, he's 50, but what place of life are you at when you're dating it in these relationships? Because that stuff is important. If you're 20
Right.
something years old, but me and my husband were at the same place in life. We were 20 something years old. We were both working. We were both in
Mhm.
graduate school. So we understood the grind because sometimes you be in
Mhm.
graduate school and nobody understand that grind. Like I'm thinking about getting a
Mhm.
PhD. My husband's like, have at it. If you want to get one, but I also think we got 2 kids. We be in the like it's a lot if I want to get one, right? Do I need one? Jesus, you keep like, do I need to do this? But it is a grind for you to be able to do those things. And sometimes you have to be at that same place in life for that person to
Right.
understand that grind.
Right. Right. And I'm blessed because he understands my professional grind, and
Yes,
it takes up a lot of my time, but he is so supportive. He's understanding. Now he will say, okay, look, you've been working all day, we need to go do something, you need to step away. And
good.
typically, the old me would have been like, you don't tell me what to do, you know this is my job, I need to do
Zero
this. But
tolerance.
now, right, now I'm like, okay, let's go get dinner, hang out. I have to step away. And so I really feel like he was created for me because he gives me
Right.
that balance that I need.
You trust them with your well-being, and I think that's important to know. When you really are into people, when you can hear what they're saying and know that they are wanting the best for you, you trust them with your well-being. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because a lot of times we don't give into people, we talk submission, but the one thing a pastor said to me, which I thought was important, was submission is the process of 2 people out submitting the other. It's not just women doing what the
Mhm.
man says, but when you are talking about submission, you're talking about who can out because you're trusting the person that they have your best interests. And so when they say
Right.
these things, you're listening to these things because they have your best interests. I think the part of
Right.
it when you listen to this, I can think about when we moved to where we are now. I kicked and screamed when we came. I grew up in the east side. I grew up in Clarkston. I went to school in Decatur. My mom had finally moved to Ellenwood. All my friends was in Decatur. You talking about moving to where? No, we call it the boonies. I'm not moving to no Alpharetta. There ain't nothing up there but sticks. It's like Gainesville. Now, my husband's very strategic. He said, look, they're building this, they're building this, they're building this. We're going to move because they're building everything. And when I tell you, one of my friends came to visit and she was like, you live in Alpharetta? I said, you got to come see this. I said, I always pass by where you had your baby shower for your first kid. You need to come this area and let me show you what they built. And I started naming the stuff they built. She said, you're kidding me. I said, no, we got the Avalon up here. They have tons of restaurants. Main Street doesn't even look recognizable from when I moved because they have everything on the lawn. You can't even see the building. The building, even the courthouse now has these work here, play here, stores, apartments, houses on this. They have redone this area, but that's why he said he wanted to move here. He's like, look, you got to go where they're building. If you want to be around stuff, they're building here. They haven't built yet. We going where they're building. And so I kicked and screamed, but it proved to be a really good decision because my kid loves his school here. He's at a charter school. The charter school is phenomenal. And so it proved to be a really good move for our family. My church is here. I love North Point. I go to, there, it's huge. I love that church. And I love what Andy Stanley does in the community. Black churches be in church all day. Andy Stanley have us out in an hour. It's funny because I can tell he breaks up his sermons like a regular sermon. So it'd be sometimes we in church is literally just introduction. To the rest of the service because it's only an hour. So I think that sometimes our significant other, when we know that we have built this trust, right? And they are really into protecting us and we love them and we understand that love and they're a good fit for us. We can trust when they say it's too much, it's too little, it's not enough.
Right.
When they challenge us, when they push us, you can take it because you know that they see something on the outside that they want better for you. They want the best for you. So.
Right. You're right.
Look at us growing up, having big people relationships. Because honey, in
I
college,
know,
all right,
because
Candy,
I
what we
never thought
gonna confess?
I
What we
never
gonna
thought that was
confess?
going to be in my book of life.
I always wanted it. I want my destiny, honey. Destiny knocked on my door. I almost pushed them out the window because I was listening to somebody else that had nothing to do with it. So,
Yep.
I used to be one of those kids that wanted to be married at 18. And then I got to a place and I was like, I don't know about this.
Right.
I'm married now, and I think, girl, the Lord saved you because marriage is work. It's worth it, but it is a lot. I mean, year 5, every married couple over 20 years told us year 5 is gonna be rough. So if you at year 4, 3, understand year 5 is gonna be rough. It is. It makes or breaks your marriage. Or if you have kids, and this is the one thing I saw too. In kindergarten, all the families are together. By first grade, everybody's getting divorced. Decide what kind of parenting, if you're going to have kids, what that's going to look like. Because a lot of times, one of my friends told me, she said, what happens is you realize the things you ignored in your partner, you can no longer ignore because they're giving them to your kid. And I thought that was very profound that you now realize that you have a whole nother human being that can't accept these particular flaws. They need something different. So it really is important who you partner with. And that's why I'm passionate about dating, because if we can talk about what dating looks like, then we can prevent some of this stuff on the back end, this divorce, this separation. No, we giving them 30 days. In 30 days, if we got more questions and answers, they're not it. We're kicking them to the curb.
Right. Because I feel like I'm not gonna speak for you, but I feel like I had so many dating disasters in college. It was just I was doing it all wrong. It was just horrible. I mean,
I saw, you know what? The researcher in me, I was doing it wrong in college, which is why I started researching in my 20s. I took an interpersonal class, I took a communication class, I started reading books, I started studying relationship science. So I really got into it like, we're not doing this. And that's why my friend was like, your husband is like nobody you dated. They're good. Because that means I improve. That means we're up from it. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be like anybody I dated. They should have some similarities about things I like. But I think that in college we were. And I don't know. If I could go back to college and tell my college self something, would it be about these dating? I do think we made some good decisions. I think sometimes we got to a place where we were like, we ain't doing that though. We doing a lot.
Right.
But we ain't doing that though.
Right. Yes.
College was very all right, Candace. What you gonna confess? College was interesting, but what confession do you have for us today?
Let me see. Okay. I don't know if it's what. Well, I guess it would be a confession because I don't think really anybody knows but us who are there. I've never told this story to anyone else, but we did a lot of things in college. You, Brooke, and I mean, we. Okay. Do you remember
We did.
when we had this group of male friends that lived in the lofts? And do you remember
Yes.
us?
One of them still
I
calls
don't.
me and asks about
I
you
don't
all
even.
the time, and I tell him, "Leave you alone." Yes.
I don't even remember how we got there. Whose car? I don't even. None of us had a car. I don't even know how we got there. But we pulled up to these men's house and just bulldozed our way into their home, just busted into their house like we owned it. I don't even remember what we were there for. Of course, I'm sure it had something to do with your special friend, uh,
Probably,
whose
because he was
name
the
I
one
will
always
not
dodging
mention, who
everybody.
remains to be blocked on my social media because he stalks me. Um, and there was a bunch of girls in the
And
house,
you always
and we
ask
just
about me, and I'm like, "Get out of here."
completely messed up that for them. I mean, it was awful. And when
Yeah,
I think
because they
back,
were
I'm
like,
like,
"Who are
oh
these
my
chicks?"
god,
You know what's funny is I think we went in with him. I feel like we went in with him because he would let you do stuff. I feel like we went in with him is how we got in. It was he came and got us, and we was like, "We want to go back to your house," and he was like, "Y'all know they got." We said, "We don't care." Because it was me and Brooke whose friends was being friends, being friendly, and we was like, "We don't care, take us back." And he was like, "All right." He just,
oh
I
my
feel like it was him.
god,
I feel like it because he was always stirring up trouble too. So I feel like he took us back. So I do. I feel like he took us back, and the girls was like, "Oh, who are
yes. And I
these
just think
chicks?
about some of the
How they
things
just
that
walking in
we
the house?"
did.
And we were like, "Hey, you
Yeah,
want to keep talking to them?
like it was
Go
our
ahead and
house
show us
too.
what you got going on."
Yeah, it was like, well, care they here, we here. And I just think back
Right.
and I
We
say,
always here. Y'all knew.
I can't believe I did things like that. Like, oh my God, I was crazy.
We did. We didn't care. I mean, busted in there, said hey, shook hands. Do you hear me? To these chicks that they was trying to date, knowing that they was also supposedly trying to date us. Okay, say
Yeah,
something. You gonna put us
yeah. And
out?
I
No.
just think,
And the chick was probably waiting for us to get put out, right? They didn't. They
right,
didn't put
but
us
that
out. So
didn't
the chicks was leaving.
happen. That never happened.
They
No
didn't put us
matter
out.
how
They
many
never put us
times
out. They never put
I
us
think
out.
they were scared of us to a
Maybe.
certain
Like,
extent.
or they had more feelings than they was
They
willing
were
to
like,
admit
we're
at
not
that
messing
age.
with
You know,
these
you're 20. I'm
girls.
not gonna admit I have real feelings for you, right? I'm just let you do what you want in my house, and then let the chicks who were here first slander around like, who are these girls? Do you know them? Yeah, we know them. You don't. I mean, what? What you want us to do? Like they just look stuck. Like, how did y'all get here? I mean, we
Yeah,
came in like, hey, how are y'all? What's up? And they was like,
yeah, yeah. And
hey,
I just,
what y'all doing here? We heard y'all
I,
having. We heard y'all hanging out. We just came to hang out. And eventually they put the girls out and came and hung with us. I mean, this happens in college. They put them out. So what y'all doing here? Why y'all just busting in like
yeah.
this?
Yeah, yeah,
I
but
don't
they
know if it's
would
a grown person not
never.
be doing that. I think
We
you're right.
never had any repercussions for that. But I just think
We
like
did it. We never none
with
ever. We never had any repercussions from any. Remember one time? Okay, so this is about. Remember one time we followed them home. They were with Lucius, and I don't again whose car because we didn't have a car. We didn't have a car, and we
that's
followed
what I
them
don't
home, and they didn't
understand.
notice till
We
they were
did
almost to the
not
gate, and
have
we made a quick
cars.
right turn
I
because they made
don't
a left turn. We didn't have a
I
car.
don't know
None of us had.
how we
Candace was the one to
got
get a
these
car, and by this time we
places.
weren't dealing with them. Never had
Right.
a car. I didn't have a car. Candace didn't have a car. Brooke didn't have a car.
I don't even
Her,
know
she
how
probably had
we
access the
I
most
don't
because her mother would rent cars and come get us.
I don't even know how
I
we
don't
got
know whose
around.
car
I
we
don't
were
e-
in. Somebody we
but
talked into driving us. It was some guy because we had a lot of friends. We had a lot of friends in college, which is crazy because even with my so this is the thing too, guys. when you have fun in college, but you marry your husband who went to your same college, he has jokes about someone like he has a lot of jokes about Chris. And sometimes I can't avoid them jokes because he can't. He's like, yeah, nobody told you that leprechaun. Like he has a lot of jokes
Yes.
about the first guy I dated in college because he knows him and he met me with him. And so him and Eddie ride. I mean, they will go on bouts about, "Well, yeah, we glad you upgraded. Like, let's talk about that. Do we really have to talk about him? No, yeah, we do. We
And
need to
I think
remind you. Let's keep you humble, okay?
by the
Let's keep
time I moved in, you were coming to a breakup point. You were getting to a point where you were getting
Yep, we were.
tired by the time I moved in, I believe.
Yes, because remember you were the one that was like, his aunt is calling me looking for him. What is going? Remember when somebody, it was a Jeremiah called you or his both
It
of
might
them,
have been
and you
him.
were
It
the
might
because
have been
okay, so the
Jeremiah.
way that Columbus State is set up, guys. It might have been just the way Columbus State is set up, guys, is you have 2 rooms inside the house, and then they've converted the garage to a bedroom, but it's got like the shower, the bed, all of that's outside. The only things that's not connected is the kitchen. So you have to come in to cook. But if you really just want to have like a hot plate, fridge, all that outside, you could. So you got a closet, your bathroom, all of us had our own bathrooms. So my mother was like, you didn't go to a dorm. I don't know what this is. This isn't a dorm. So Brooke had a room, walk-in closet, bathroom. I had a room, big closet, outside bath. So my bathroom is the guest bathroom. You go outside. Candace got a garage, shower, bathroom, outside. So me and Brooke are inside. Finally, and I tell this story a lot because this is when I realized that this dude was if I look at the DSM, he's not even a narcissist. He's more bordering sociopath. But he lied a lot. He lied a lot. To this day, he has stolen stuff. He lied a lot. And so I knew that if I broke up with him, I could not just break up because he would have all of these reasons and excuses, and I would be philandering around. So this is when I really came up with this breakup process that I have now. My husband's never experienced, right? He makes jokes because he's never experienced it. I had 12-step program. Like, dude, you just haven't experienced. I have one. You just didn't need it.
Right.
So he literally calls and probably I'm sure he cheated on me several times, right? There was evidence there. I remember Angelica saying, dude, he used my computer and he's messaging girls. This is not the conversations you have if you got a girlfriend, right? So you're using my friend's stuff to have. But see, he was smart about it because he talked like this all the time. You could either think this was just him joking around or him cheating. You don't know which because he always talks like this, right?
Right.
So I remember Jeremiah. So finally, when Jeremiah was like, yo, I thought he told me he was going to church. And Jeremiah was like, he looked like he was going to church when I left. I said, oh, yeah, call him. So Jeremiah calls him and, dude, what you do? I'm upstairs at George's house with his sister, blah, 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 blah. And I know him. I'm like, I ain't going to call him. I'm going to wait. So I waited. He calls at 1:30. Yeah, church was good. I'm like, you know what? We're ending this now. The relationship is done. And so over the course of the next couple of days, Brooke calls his aunt first and asks his aunt because he's now lying. Oh, she picked me up late. My aunt. I said, Brooke, they say we sound alike. Call his aunt. Hi, Missing Girl. I just want to know, on Sunday, did Chris go to night? Oh, you guys don't have a night service? You haven't seen Christopher in 3 weeks? Boy, let me tell you, when I said that, well, I called your aunt. Okay. She said she ain't seen you in 3 weeks. This is over.
Wasn't there a time frame where he would not come get his stuff?
Yes. And then took my stuff when he finally got. So Candace comes in after all of this starts going off. I dump him. He's calling the house. He's leaving messages because I'm done answering the phone at this point. Candace comes in and goes, what the H y'all doing in here? My phone in the garage is blowing up. I got Jeremiah calling. I got Chris leaving voicemails. I got his auntie calling me from the garage. I leave y'all alone for 2 hours and I come back to y'all acting a fool. What is going on?
Now, keep in mind, I was the new roommate. So all of this was happening before I moved in.
I forgot because we had Dorian before.
Yep. Really started coming inside.
Candace said, I leave y'all alone for 2 hours and y'all cannot behave. What is going on in here? I remember that. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. So if you have a liar in your life, collect evidence. That's my lesson on that. Collect the evidence and pull. Patterns are important because what happened was I would watch him he would tell half lies to a lot of different people and he wouldn't expect you to call the people that he lied about, which is why he would use them. He never expected me to call his aunt. He's like, she's not going to call my aunt and ask these questions. And that's why I took a chance and called his aunt. and
Yep.
she basically blew up his
And I
spot.
think
What do you
he
mean?
thought
No, I haven't seen. And
because you were so nice, you were so sweet, God fearing. I think he felt like you were gullible, and uh he thought he could pull the wool over your eyes. I think he really in his heart thought that, but he
Yep,
didn't
see,
know.
that's what happens when you underestimate me because, that's fine. I am sweet and nice, but as I tell my husband, I burn a very slow fuse, but once it's lit, you probably don't want you probably don't want it lit at all. You probably want it to keep me the way
Yeah,
I was.
I
My
think you
husband
were
said
the
he
most
made a joke.
patient out of all of us. I think you
Yeah.
were the most patient one, but no one wanted to see your wrath. No one wanted to
'Cause
see
by the time I hit it,
Big
it was lit.
Mama per se.
That's how we got away with just busting in guys' houses. I would be sitting in there. I mean, I just remember them 2 on the couch with stupid grins on their face, like, "What are we gonna do with them? They don't
Yeah,
do what
looking
we say, they
crazy.
don't conform to no rules, they just do what they wanna do. We go put them out? No, we're not. But
We
I
probably
was over him. I was done. When I was done, I collected evidence. That's something I teach my clients. Track patterns. Patterns are important because they tell
Mhm,
you how you feel. They tell you that with the red flags. They tell you that. I mean, there was so many red flags. Sounding. You know what's
mhm.
funny? One of my friends said. She said you came out of it. Her mother said you came out of it a lot sooner than we thought. I was like, "'Cause I track patterns."
Really?
That's something that. Yeah. One of my friends' mom said she came out of it a lot sooner than I thought she would. And I think that's important to give people time to come out because I think sometimes we try to rush them out, but what's most important to me is they never go back. They
Right.
don't go back. If you rush somebody out and they keep going back and keep going back and keep going, they're not done. Let them finish the business because that
Yeah.
evidence that I curated over those months gave me full proof as to why I shouldn't be with him. I mean, I had receipts where he had stolen the neighbor's GameCube and straight up lied
Mhm,
about it. So
mhm.
that convinced me that he probably did steal some stuff
And
that
I wanna
he was
say, I
accused
think
of by the
he
police.
stole some stuff from you too.
Right. Brooke, I'm sure, because I remember one time him handing me some money. I'm like, dang, this look like the dance money from Brooke. And I gave it back to her. When he gave it to me like an idiot, I gave it back to her. And he said, well, why did you give it back to her? I said, because she said it was missing. I seen you come from her room and I gave it back
See?
to her because it looked like what she had pulled out the other day. So I gave it back to her. And I
Right.
mean, and we weren't like that. We were very free and giving as roommates. Like, I mean, you
Mhm.
just, and so we did that, and this is why, and you see all these stories, this is why my husband has jokes because he taught me what I will never accept in a relationship again. Sometimes you got to go through that so I will never ever ever accept these. I came out of the
Right.
relationship stating I don't know what I want, but I know what I would never tolerate again. I know what I would never put up
Right.
with. I know what I would never
Right.
commit myself to. I know what I will never ever ever put up with from a person that says they're going to be a committed partner for me ever again in my life, ever,
Yep.
ever,
That's
and I
exactly
haven't.
how I was. I don't know what I want, but I know what I don't want.
Yep, yep, and you go through that. You may not know what you want, and that's okay. It's okay not to know what you want, but honey, you can definitely make a list of what you don't want.
Right. And then when you start seeing
Now
those
I
things
teach
you
core
don't
values.
want, you
If I coach
get
you in
up out
dating,
of
we talk
there.
about the core values.
Yep.
Red flag. Y'all talking about red flags. Let's talk about the real red flags. When you start seeing stuff that is like, okay, this is like really getting scarier. This is like really, oh my goodness, like get out of there. Get out of there.
Yeah.
Even if it's subtle stuff that it's like, this doesn't fit with me. This doesn't work with my future. Like, he doesn't support my dreams.
Mhm.
Get out of there. If it's too many of them, if you keep putting them in one thing one of my mentors told me who was a therapist at the time, she said, we're not concerned about that yet. Right. But we're going to take that and we're going to put it in our back pocket. And if we get too many things
Yes.
we're putting in our back pocket, then all of it's concerning. Right. We get up to 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right.
We got to look. But that right there, because people are flawed individuals. So you're not going to get a perfect person. This is very
Right.
important because as a person who was told as a kid, I'm always good. Well, when college, we weren't told we weren't good. We was failing all kind of, oh, Jesus. College was rough, okay? And this is also important because I remember the first time I'd ever been called a bad influence was when Candace's mom said, Candace, you're hanging around those friends again. Remember that? She said, you're not doing your grades. I said, oh God. But what's funny is all of us went and got master's degrees. Like all of us ended up doing
Yes.
well in life. Thank God for life
Yes.
correcting us.
Right. I mean, I
But I
think that
remember.
we finally, kind of came to our senses. Like you and Brooke knew that that was not the place for you guys, and you guys got out of there. You know, and after I
Yeah.
graduated, I got out of there. So,
And to
and
be honest, I always say I probably should have just changed my major because if had I been instead of an education major, had I gone into psychology, I think I would have did well. One of our experiences with psychology scared me because I was like, well, she has a 3.5 and she's failing these classes. But I was really smart. I underestimated how smart I was because I wasn't going to class. But if I was interested in it,
mm-hmm,
like my sociology class, I had A's in. I could have just switched over to psychology and probably would have did just
mm-hmm,
fine. Because
mm-hmm.
Georgia State ended up being really rough, and we did get out. We just came home. I finished at Georgia State. She finished at Kennesaw. Candace finished at Columbus, and then we all went and got master's degrees from various universities. So I mean, hang
Yeah.
in there, parents. If your kid is giving you the blues in college, hang in there. You never know what they're gonna be.
Right. I changed my
Candace is
major
getting
three
instructional certification.
times.
I'm talking about a PhD.
Yeah, three times I changed my certification. Three
Yeah, yeah,
times.
yeah, yeah. I feel
My
like that's why they
my
give you 4
my
years.
major. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
not certification. My major. Three times.
Mine was too because I went in as mass communication. I went in as mass communications. Probably should have stuck with that one though. Then I changed to teaching. That didn't work out. And then by the time I got to Georgia State, I moved over to psychology, and then I finished at psychology. But by then,
And see
Georgia
this.
State was so big, I didn't feel like I just don't suggest that school. Yeah, I don't. It's too
Mhm.
big. It's if you're used to 70 because I felt like I wasn't psychology is one of those majors you need to dig in and you can't dig in with scantrons and multiple choice questions. You just cannot. You need more. I feel like I got more out of grad school when I took that major in grad school. Case studies and analyzing and diagnosis. I
Right.
feel like because there's 70 kids,
Right.
you can't grade a case study for 70 kids unless it's one case. It'd be, you know what I mean? And so I feel like Georgia State is one of those schools that's very disjointed. They have a lot of moving pieces. They all claim to
Mhm.
be this
Mhm.
standard of
They're huge.
excellence,
Yeah.
but I mean, I remember applying for grad. Yeah, they're huge. They lost my paperwork. They always lose my paperwork. I remember having to go down there because I had dealt with it before and walking my paperwork over for them to be like, well, we ain't accepting you anyway because you got old scores. I'm like, see, that's why I don't fool with y'all. Y'all lost my stuff. Y'all got the nerve to talk about y'all ain't accepting me. I don't accept y'all. And I'm
See?
not applying to none of y'all
See?
programs again. So yeah, it is huge. It is really, really, really big. So it's a lot to consider when you're doing college. It really is like a good fit for you because
Right.
Columbus State is small. I look at like Michael and all of them, they've done well. Michael's done well. A lot of his friends that went to Columbus State, they've done well too. You know, and to be honest, you've done very well coming out of Columbus State. So I do feel if you're in the right major with the right kind of movement in Columbus State, you can do very well at that school because it is small
Mhm.
enough to give you that hands-on learning. I remember taking classes from Judge Daniels and Dr. Josh. I don't even remember his last name, but him and his wife were both psychologists on the practice. And then I went to Georgia State and took classes from all of my upper level classes was from a daggum TA. Like I didn't get
Yeah.
not no real professors, which is
Yeah.
interesting. Is I'm like,
Yeah.
y'all, I didn't get not no real professors when I went there. So
Right.
I just always think
Right.
that was very interesting that at that small school, I got people who were in the field. And Georgia State's big. So if
Right.
you are into that, if you can function in those environments, it's a great school. But understand that it is a
Mhm.
huge, very, 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 very big school. And you're going to
Right.
have to be very independent when you're there. Because if not, no one's going to walk your hand. Columbus State, they do some hand holding. They do say, hey, you need to see us. You have an advising hold every semester. So they can advise you what to take, what to look like, how to get you out. I kept
Mhm.
that some habit and they were like, why are you here? What do you
Yep.
need? Like, why you keep coming up here?
Yep.
I'm like, because I'm trained. Columbus State used to. We don't have
Right.
advisor
And then
holds.
I
Just go
think
pick
one
your
of
classes
the
in.
best
So if you're independent, that school probably it's made for.
I think one of the best advisors I was never really good at science. I think I had failed biology twice. I kept taking it because you have to have a science with the lab.
Mm,
And she told me, she was like, at this point, I suggest you just leave the F on your transcript and
mm.
take another science with the lab because if you keep failing this, it's going to keep bringing your GPA down, keep bringing it down, keep bringing it down. If you just leave it,
Ooh.
that's one F. If you just leave it, take a different one. So I took astronomy with the lab, aced it. I had that biology F on her
Nice.
transcript, but she was real with me. She was like, you can't keep taking this class because you keep failing it. You need to
Yep.
do something different. And I
Yep. And it
did, and
worked.
I passed it, and it worked.
Nice. It worked. It worked. Well, Candace, I have definitely enjoyed you today. Normally, I only do 30 minutes, but we are like at an hour and 20. So, guys, I hope you watched the whole
Yes.
episode. Any final thoughts about how parents can support their kid in special education, any accommodations, anything they may need to know just as a parent navigating that space?
I would definitely say if you have access to internet, computer, definitely keep up and subscribe to the Georgia DOE because everything that we do comes from those state laws. Everything that changes with the kids'
Mm,
accommodations, with the testing protocols, they come from those laws. And it's public knowledge, but you need to know where to find it.
yeah.
So we always give when we have meetings for our special ed students, we always give the parents a copy of their parental rights. Take the time. I'm not even going to say you have to thoroughly read it. Take the time to scan through it and know your rights, as well as stay updated on everything in regards to special education. It all comes through the Georgia DOE website. You could go, we don't, they could go pull the parental rights themselves. You know what I'm saying? And so I just encourage them to
Mhm.
stay up with what is going on with that. Know your rights in regards to standardized testing. Um, that's all I can say
Mm,
in that area. But I really, 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 I have some strong feelings about standardized tests, but I really just encourage parents to
yeah.
know your rights and stay up to date with the changes in the laws, the requirements, the accommodations, all those types of things that come from the Georgia DOE. Because when they send it out, we're like the bad guys. We have to tell the parents that we have to implement it because it's by law. They have changed the law, or they've changed the regulation, or they've changed something. And so, we kind of take the heat for that. But if the parents get a little bit more in tune at that level, they know what's coming down the pipe. They can submit their questions. They can create their own voice. And that's what I really, really, really need the parents to do
Mm,
is build and create
right.
a voice for your child.
Nice. Nice. That's great advice to go on the Georgia DOE, subscribe to their stuff, pay attention to the laws because it is true. These laws come down. The Americans with Disabilities Act is going to be your first place to look because that's going to determine what is fair and equitable for your kid. And then the Georgia
Mhm.
DOE, they're passing laws all the time with how these things are implemented in the classroom. So keeping up with that and subscribing to that is going to be very helpful for you understanding what accommodations you're allowed because I used to write
Right.
accommodations for college. Like a lot of people don't know that. So with my students, when I had my therapy kids, I would tell the parents, you can add this, you can add, I can add, yes, you can. The
Mhm.
accommodation just
Mhm.
can't be unreasonable. If the school can put it in there, it's a reasonable accommodation. It's not a hardship on the school, then you can
Right.
put it in there if your kid needs it. So make sure, even if they never use it, it's somewhere on
It is
paper for
there.
them to pull from just in case. Right. So, Candace, we
Right.
have definitely enjoyed you. Tell us where we can find you at.
Well, you can find me on my Instagram. Hold on, because I just got I just got a new teacher Instagram. And so I have several Instagrams because I do the social media management for the math department for my school district. And so I have to have a separate one for that. But you should check us out there. It's CCPS Make Math Matter. Also, my small business is Crafts by Candace on
Oh, say it
Instagram.
one more time. You were kind of glitching out. Say it one more time.
Okay. So with my small business, it's at Crafts by Candace on Instagram. My CCPS Make Math Matter page is at CCPS Make Math Matter. And my regular teacher page is lowercase Miss MS period underscore Chapman with a T. Um, and also, you can find me on Facebook as Candace Chapman.
Nice, nice. And I like the fact you have a teacher page because, teachers and Facebook and we've had a lot of mixed signals with that. So I think that's cool that you've had the
Right. And
friendship.
I try to keep those right. I try to keep those things separate. I have my personal, I have my business, and then I have my school. And I know that's a lot of accounts, but I have to keep it separate.
Yeah. What's funny is they talk about millennials being like that. We have separate emails for everything, separate account. I mean, you almost have to. If not, it's going to kind of get jumbled up. One of my friends has a separate account for her kid. So all the school information goes to that email for the kid. So she
Right.
knows that this is all the school. And I'm thinking about doing that because it gets jumbled up in my regular email and
Right.
I miss all
And
kind
that's
of
a good
stuff. So I'm like,
thing.
maybe I need to
That's
do that.
I would definitely
Yeah.
suggest that parents do that because I get a lot of parents. I'll send emails, and they're like, I didn't get that, or they may have overlooked it. So that's a
Yeah,
great idea.
it is. It is.
Yeah.
All righty, guys. So we will definitely talk to you later. Next week, I have on, I don't know. I have to look and see. I think we skip a week. Well, actually, I'm going to see if I can get my brother if we skip a week. See if he can come on, harass him about his projects, what he's doing. We could tell this Christmas story about us and his bike because, Lord Jesus, this bike, 4 a.m. My husband was knocked out. He was
Yes.
like,
I
do we have a
definitely
pump?
want to
He's like,
tune
what
in for
pump?
that
What
one.
pump? What's going on? Yeah, so thank you, Candace. We have thoroughly enjoyed you guys today. And you have definitely learned about my life and my college experience that my mother would probably, prefer that I bury. But it is there that I met my husband. So you can't bury too much because I met him freshman year there. We did
Yes.
not date, but apparently he knows me because he has tons of stories. So, maybe I could talk him into coming on one time. He has his own podcast, though. He does sports. He does a Falcons podcast, Pound for Pound, ATL. That's where he hangs out. So, I mean, you see him,
Okay.
you'll know which one is my husband. So,
Yes. Thank you so
so
much
guys,
for
we'll see you
having
until
me.
next week. Thank you, Candace. This was a blast. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right, guys. See you later.